All right, here we go. We are going to keep talking about atonality. We're going to get a little bit more into some of the really specific and structured ways that it's used. And we're especially going to be talking about one of the major atonal schools of thought that existed. And this is the one that our project piece is going to be about. So let's get in there and let's take a peek at what we're talking about here. So the main topic that we're really looking at here is what's called 12-tone serialism, which sort of is a name that's got a lot of elements to it, but it really is actually fairly descriptive of exactly what we're talking about. The 12-tone part should really stand out to us. We're going to find that it has many names. This 12-tone one is the first thing, and just as a hint of what the 12-tone part is, I'm just going to play this as a little hint. So anybody who is carefully counting there kind of knows what the 12-tone idea is. And we also call it serialism sometimes. And then if you're extra fancy or just want to seem extra fancy, you might use the term dodecaphonic, which is kind of a hoot to say, but sounds much more complicated than it is. Dodecaphonic really just means 12 sounds. So a lot of these names center around that 12-tone idea. The serialism part, we'll get into what that is referring to in a second. This method was a way that was really developed so that composers could write in the atonal language these pieces that had a much wider breadth to them, had a much larger reach. And so that's really where this came about. It really entered into a place where it was central to a lot of the way many prominent musicians and composers wrote and thought about music for much of the 20th century. So this is really one of the main dominant ideas. And it really is associated with these three composers mostly, Arnold Schoenberg, Anton Webern, and Alban Berg. Collectively, they're known as the Second Viennese School, which is another... This comes with all kinds of fun names. Second Viennese School. We call it the Second Viennese School because we had an older Viennese school of thought, which was the time in Vienna, when Haydn, Mozart, and Beethoven were working there. No one actually calls them this, but they're thought of as the first Viennese school, and this is the Second Viennese School of musical thought. Arnold Schoenberg is the composer who is really the one who wrote this, and I sort of thought I would give us a little reminder. Arnold Schoenberg, there's his watchful eye keeping track over us. He's just the central character in this topic, and he really invented and came up with serialism as a method for analyzing music and composing music. And that's just an absolutely critical thing to know. And it continues with our main atonal idea of equality of all the 12 pitches. So let's sort of look at that structure here and see how that's accomplished. We said before that atonality, even though it's sort of can sound chaotic and can sound disconnected or unfamiliar at the very least, it's actually very structured. And so some atonal styles of writing that were prominent before serialism had an unordered group of notes as the structural setting. So maybe I could have these three notes, right? And it didn't matter the order that they happened, right? All those different permutations. And it's the intervallic relationships that are just inherent between those three notes that make the structure. Serialism, however, is focused instead on an ordered grouping of notes, meaning the order that the notes happen in is the central structural aspect. And that's a big difference. And that's when we talk about serialism, there's like a series of notes that's going to be the core identity of this piece. And we sometimes use that term series. Other times you'll hear people talk about a row or a tone row, something like that. But that just reinforces the idea that it's the series, the order of the notes that really matters. And as we see, composing the series, writing the series, has a huge impact on the way that the rest of the piece is going to happen, because it's all about the order of the notes. So let's take a look at some specifics about a series. The first and foremost thing is that a series contains all 12 of the notes. You can't have a series that, for instance, doesn't have the note E flat. Maybe you're in a little bit of a fight with E flat and you want to leave E flat out. Well, you can't have a series without E flat. Everybody has to be invited. So that's the first thing. All 12 notes are present in a series. And what we have is that none of the notes are going to be repeated before we get through all of them. So let's talk about what that means. I don't mean repeated like this. Like I couldn't repeat C a bunch of times before going in to my other notes. That is not what we mean. We don't mean repeated in that way. We mean repeated as in start on C, or our new name for C, of course, we know is 0. I can't go from 0 to 3, then come back to 0, then go to 4, then go to 6, then go to 7. No. I have to do them in order. I can repeat one of those notes changed the order there. So bad serialism. But the idea is it's not playing the note again that's the problem. It's repeating or going out of order that is not part of the heart of the serialist style. So like I said, you can repeat a note, play it a bunch of times before moving on. Or you could even do something where, say, you hold the note. That's fine. It's just changing the order of the notes. That's not something that the serialist style accepts. And this is going to really be the thing that sets the piece in motion. And as we're going to see along the way, it's the way that we can then transform this order that really makes the piece have sort of a lot of ability to continue developing. So we've seen this set of notes before. We practiced our pitch labeling on this set of notes. This is from Schoenberg, Arnold Schoenberg's String Quartet number 4. So let's hear how this sounds. Right, so there's our notes, and we can hear, or we can see, I should say, that all 12 pitches are in there, right? So we've got 0 is in measure 3, we've got 1 is in measure 1, 2 is in measure 1. We could go all the way through and find that all 12 pitches are there because this is a 12-tone series. And like we saw before, some of them are repeated in their spot, but are not repeated out of order. So if we look in measure 2, here's measure 1. There's 3 nines in a row, 3 A naturals in a row. Those are still in order, though, because 9 happens after 1. There's 9, and before 10. It doesn't matter that there are 3 of them, because the order of the notes doesn't change. Same thing in measure 3, where we've got 4 E natural. We've got 3 of those in a row. The order isn't changed just because there are 3 of them. The sounds, whether I play just one of all the notes, right? The sound of the order isn't different when the rhythm is different. You see what I mean? So that's a series. So we've got all 12 pitches used. The sequence remains the same despite the fact that there are individual notes that are repeated. It's the sequence and the order of the notes that matters. That's absolutely central to what we mean when we talk all about serialism and how the row is the central idea. All right, we're going to keep going with that.